guys, this is here and welcome to PHP tutorial number 27. In the last tutorial we looked at how to create tables and databases, but we did it with PHP which has its own, GUI and stuff. So really it's not proper. So in this tutorial we're going to look at how to do the same, but using the SQL syntax, that's structured query language. Now, maybe you won't find yourselves ever in a situation where you need to create the database and table using SQL, but it's always good to know how to do it, and it also it's a starter and an introduction to SQL itself, so it's just a good thing to do. So unless we're doing it through PHP, because actually SQL, sorry, I completely bypassed this by accident. SQL is PHP's way of communicating with MySQL databases, okay? We have to use SQL in our PHP scripts, so it's really important to learn. If we don't know, we can't use MySQL, really. So really important to learn. Now I've covered that, we either have to execute the SQL queries in a PHP script, which we're not going to do, or through the MySQL command line, which we are going to do. So how do you start up the MySQL command line is probably the question you're asking yourselves right now. Well, really simple in WAMP. I'm afraid I only actually know how to do it in WAMP. I don't know how XAMPP, or if you set it up by yourself, you have to find it out by yourself. I'm sure it's fairly easy though. Just Google, start up MySQL command line in XAMPP or whatever. But for WAMP, just left click the icon, click the MySQL folder, and click MySQL console. Now it will ask you to enter a password, but generally, unless you've changed some config options, it's going to be just nothing. So just hit enter, and you should be greeted with welcome to MySQL Monitor. If you don't get greeted with that and it says like access denied or something, let's check what it says. Actually, I'll enter in an incorrect password. I don't actually know. Okay, it just says error and then quits immediately. So if you get that, you'll need to Google how to change the MySQL password. I think there's a way to do it through PHPMyAdmin in the information schema, or MySQL databases or something like that, or in the in the httpd.conf file. It might be in there, but just Google that really if it doesn't let you in. But for us now, let's start cracking on. Now, the first command we're going to learn to use, actually, is not creating databases or tables. We're going to learn how to use an already existing database. In the previous tutorial, we created the data database, so let's try connecting to that. All you need to do is type the use command, and then a space, and then the name of the database, okay? Now, some people like to enclose this in not quotes. These aren't actually quotes. These are little, not even apostrophes even. These are like dashes. On my keyboard, this dash thing is the key next to number 1 at the top of the keyboard, and it's got two other characters on it. It's got the pipe character, it's got that character there, and it's got what looks like a pipe character. That's a pipe, actually. Maybe it's... no, I don't know how to get the other one. But there's a little line on the right side. So if you can see that button, press it, and you'll get this. If you can't see it, don't worry, because it's perfectly fine to just type it out like that. But if you can, it's perfectly fine to do that. And whilst you don't actually have to do it, always good practice to put the semicolon in there. And now if you hit enter, it should say database changed, and we'll now be in the data database, and we can now use that database. But we're not actually going to learn how to use it for now, so just type quit, it will close, and you'll need to start it up again. Again, just press enter when it says enter password. And now we're actually going to learn how to create databases. and tables as well. Now, creating the database is actually really simple. Okay, you just use the create keyword or the create command in MySQL, and because a database doesn't have like fields or anything, all you need to do is type create and then database, which is another MySQL keyword, and then the name of the database. Okay, I'm going to call it MyDB. Now, I've called it MyDB, but with a capital D, but because I'm on Windows, which is case insensitive, when we look at it in PHP MyAdmin, which is what we're going to do to confirm that it's been created, it will just be MyDB all lowercase. Okay, so Windows is actually case insensitive. Now, certain versions of Mac are case insensitive, and certain versions are case sensitive. Okay, so if you go try when you create this database in here, don't worry, we'll delete it in a second, so don't worry about that. But when you create this database, try creating it with capitals and lowercase, and then when we check it in localhost, if you see it in capitals and lowercase as you typed it out, then you obviously have a case sensitive OS. But if it's not, then you have a case insensitive. And I'm pretty sure all versions of asterisk Nix, Unix, Linux, all those other ones, if there are any others, I'm not sure, but I know Unix and Linux myself, those are both case sensitive. Okay, so case will matter in Linux and Unix, maybe in Mac, maybe not in Mac, never in Windows. Okay, and I'm just going to hit this semicolon in as well. So create database. Just so you know, you don't actually have to put the commands in capitals. Create will be recognized if it's lowercase or uppercase. I'm not sure whether that type of case sensitivity matters, whether you're on Windows or on, what OS you're on. I think it's universal, it doesn't matter on all OSs, but for my experience, case hasn't really mattered. But it's always just good practice to put the commands in capitals, because it helps you distinguish, okay? And you'll see lots of other people do it as well. Now let's finally hit enter after all my talking. And you should see, like it says on mine, query okay, one row affected. And if it doesn't say, if it says query failed or something, you've obviously typed it out wrong, okay? Now let's check to see that this worked. And to do that, we're just going to go into the PHP MyAdmin. Now you can see here, I've only got 3 tables. The data one we created last time, information schema and MySQL, which are there in the beginning. Okay, so if I refresh this, you should see one more pop up. And yeah, actually it's gone straight into it, MyDB. If I just go back to the main thing, you can see MyDB is now there. Okay? Okay, so now we've created our database. How do we create a table inside that database? Well, before we can type, create database, blah blah blah, we actually need to get into that database using the command I showed you just before, the use command, and we're just going to use MyDB. Now, because it's case insensitive, it doesn't matter that I've typed it out with a capital D here and a lowercase d here. So hit enter and you'll see database change. Now let's start creating our table. Again, we use the create command, okay, but this time we type the keyword table rather than database, okay, and then a space, and now we need to type our table name. I'm just going to put rand for the table name, and then I'm going to type an open parentheses, and now all this fields of our table will go in between this parenthesis and the closing parenthesis, which we haven't actually put in yet, but we will. So hit enter, and rather than try and submit that command, MySQL recognizes that you've just opened the parenthesis, and so you need to start doing it over multiple lines, and that's why you don't see the MySQL and then greater than, you see a dash and then greater than to show it's continued. And now we need to start typing out our fields. Now